Senator Scott, please.
Thank you, Chair Reed. General Clark, what does the future operating environment look like for special operation forces over the next 5, 10, and 20 years? And do you expect to need more personnel and resources given the threat from Communist China, Russia, and an emboldened Iran?
Senator, I think we have the sufficient amount of forces that we need today that exist within the force. We've just now this year gotten to the first time where we actually have a predictable schedule that all of our forces are on a 2-to-1 deployment to dwell or greater. And so the force that we have is right. In some cases, though, we actually need to make some changes within the force that we have to be able to put towards the capabilities that we will need. For example, potentially more information operators that we will need in the future. So we may have to have less in one area, but actually look at where we need to put more in the future. And what we do need is a continued sustained budget that will allow for the increased modernization and readiness so that we can build those capabilities in time for the department.
Thank you. General, as we know, President Biden's budget doesn't step with the raging inflation we're seeing right now. Are there any assets or any spending you would do that you would like to do that you'll be unable to do because of the budget basically being cut when you look at the inflation?
Senator, we have submitted an unfunded requirement list that hits specifically to the points. And top line, that asks for additional funding in the information operations, in artificial intelligence and machine learning. It hits on some the speeding up of some of our modernization of our clandestine insertion maritime, but also looks at developing counter-UAS, unmanned aerial systems, to be able to protect our forces that are forward. And that will speed those processes up in the future.
Sure. We've watched Vladimir Putin's aggression against Ukraine, and I think we're all disappointed that President Biden didn't do enough to deter it. But what can special operations continue to do to assist Ukraine and support our other partners that hopefully will help Ukraine win against Russia, and also make sure that Putin doesn't feel emboldened to invade a NATO country?
Senator, I'd highlight a few. Number one is continue to ensure the lethal aid makes it into the Ukraine, and for special operators to make sure that it gets to the Ukrainian special operations forces that I think are doing a fantastic job today inside the Ukraine. But we also have to be predictive and work with the Ukrainians on not what they need today, but as this potentially goes into protracted conflict, what will they need in the future? And it may not be as much on the lethal side, but it may be other capabilities, whether it's mobility or whether it's first aid or whether it's protection. And I think we have to be predictive to that. And the other one is already hit, is the continued info and intel sharing about what is going on. And we could talk about that separately.
Is there any lessons learned from how U.S. Special Operations Forces have been able to help Ukraine that we can apply to potentially what's going to happen when China invades Taiwan or Iran continuing to threaten Israel?
Yes, sir. Number one is it's not just the U.S. And Ukraine. While we're sitting here, we have 16 NATO nations all on their own accord that are currently working with our Special Operations Command Europe, and they are collaborating, they are sharing, and they are sensing what is happening in that environment that will then collectively be able to provide the best support to Ukraine. And I think the same lessons could be applied in other theaters. The second one is, though, getting ahead of it. The more that you can set up for success today, the better off you will be. And having the urgency to see that in advance and not waiting until the end.
Thanks. General Nakasone, what has Cybercom been able to do to increase its efforts to protect our public and private infrastructure from bad actors from Russia?
Senator, several things. First of all, deploying a team to the Ukraine to see what our adversaries are doing and being able to capture their malware and their tradecraft and share that broadly with the private sector. Secondly, it's working with the lead for this, which is DHS CISA, and providing the capacity if necessary and also the collaboration that's ongoing. And the last piece is working broadly with the private sector, particularly our defense industrial base, to ensure that they have an understanding of the tactics and techniques our adversaries are using.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Reed.
Thank you very much, Senator Scott. And gentlemen, thank you too. I will adjourn the open session. We will reconvene in SVC 217 in approximately 10 minutes to begin the closed session. Thank you very much, gentlemen.